I went by on the right, he went by on the left, and we were both doing about 100 in the rain. Before the Daytona 24-hour race, we'd always have a go-kart race in Jacksonville called the 24 Minutes of Jacksonville. And we'd rent a go-kart track, and all the guys had come in. So Brock Yates came in with Graves, who won one year in the Porsche with Hurley. And Hurley Haywood would come, Peter Gregg would come out. We'd rent the track. Hurley would get there early and pay the guy that ran the track $50 to jazz up his cart, but that was Hurley. And Brock was there one night, and we went to dinner afterwards. He said, I'm going to run another Cannonball. I said, well, 32 years old, never been to California, just seemed like a good reason to go. So I had a Porsche 911 that I'd bought in 71. George Drolsom was racing a Carrera, and he had one of the original 31-gallon gas tanks out of the Carrera, and he had to put a fuel cell in his car. So he sold me the 31-gallon gas tank, put that in the car, and a CB radio and a cheap radar detector, back then called a fuzzbuster. It didn't do any good, but it was better than nothing. We set out for New York. The first thing that Tom Neal did was, I was on a business trip. He was racing at Road Atlanta with his Camaro, and they were going to haul the 911 up here, and then I was going to drive to New York from here, and they were going to haul my car back to Jacksonville. I left the car with Tom, and Tom was not a good custodian of things. He crunched the right front fender about 5 days before the Cannonballs. It was full of Bondo in the front by the time it got here. It was kind of funny because I went to Road Atlanta and I ran into Hal Crocker, and he says, sorry to hear Tom wrecked your car. I said, oh, you're joking, are you? No, he wrecked your car. I said, you're just pulling my leg. And went about 20 feet later, another guy came and said, here, Tom crashed your 911. I said, well, this must be true then. And sure enough, he had. But, we got the car up there, and then so we left the Red Ball Garage, I think about 6 or 7 o'clock at night. We weren't real smart. Guys had planned on when they were going to arrive in L.A. and what time was the best time to leave New York to get out to New Jersey, and which was the best time to arrive in Los Angeles. Our deal was, well, let's go, punch my ticket. I'm on my way. Well, we get down into Pennsylvania, and it's raining pretty well, and we're running about 90, and that is when the speed limit was 55. Coming into Harrisburg, and there was another Porsche, a real Carrera, that was driven by a couple, is John Buffum and his wife Vicky. We're coming into Harrisburg on a 3-lane section, and there's a truck in the middle lane, so I went by on the right, he went by on the left, and we were both doing about 100 in the rain. Oh, the CB radios lit up like a Christmas tree. The truckers didn't like to be surprised. We found that out early. It was better to tell them you were coming, and they were just as happy to have you running fast in front of them. But if you surprised them, they would get upset. So we got into Harrisburg, and John and Vicky went straight across Pennsylvania on the turnpike. And we decided, and it was a bad decision, to take the southern route down to Knoxville, because some guys who were running the Cannonball had shut their mouth off, and the Ohio and Indiana Highway Patrol were looking for us. So we figured we'll just avoid them. As it turned out, it rained through most of that, and the police stayed in the donut stores, and everybody who went through Ohio and Indiana went about 150 miles shorter than we did going down through Knoxville. Well, we got out into Virginia, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I said to Tom, time for you to take over. And he gets in the driver's seat, and we're going along, and his head goes, I said, what's wrong? He said, never could drive at night. I said, oh, this is wonderful. Thank you for telling me now. We only have about 3,800 or 2,800 miles to go. So I drove both night stretches and half a day stretch, and then he couldn't talk on the radio. You had to talk like a trucker. You had to say, how about you, good buddy? And I have Florida license plate Shazam, and I was known in the Air Force as Captain Marvel. So our CB handle was Captain Marvel. Tom would go and says, hello, guys. I said, no, you got to call him good buddy. He says, they're not my good buddy. I said, look, Tom, you act in local theater. You own a trucking company. Act like a trucker. Well, he didn't know how to do that. So I stayed up on the radio the whole time, 41 hours. We got to Oklahoma, and all the routes came together, the northern route, the southern route. And we had a list of all the people on the Cannonball. And I had just closed out with a trucker who was eastbound, and I said, something like, Captain Marvel, we're westbound, we're gone. And I hear this voice going and says, how about you, Captain Marvel? I said, you got him. Who we got there? He says, Sundance. And I looked at my list. I couldn't find a Sundance. I said, I don't know a Sundance. And the voice came back and said, well, does the Portofino Inn in Redondo Beach, California mean anything to you? And I said, yeah, 10-4, yeah. What's your mile marker? And I said, 64. What's your mile marker? He said, 66. I said, oh, Tom, we're behind the Ford van. It was Heiser's Cycle Shop, Towson, Maryland, had built up a van with a bed in it. I said, wait, the southern route just killed us. So we get up to about 100. And I said, we're at the 66, where are you? Said, he's at 68. I said, oh, they must be pedaling pretty good. So we get up about 115, and we're west of Oklahoma City on the interstate. I said, we're at the 68, where are you? He says, we're at the 70. So I said, okay, that's it. 9/11 will go 130. That's what we're going to do. So we're doing 130 down the interstate in Oklahoma. I think the statutes of limitation have passed on that now. And I said, well, we're at the 72, and his signal came in weak. They had been about a mile behind us, telling us they were 2 miles in front, knowing we'd take off to try to pass them, and they would, we'd be the buffer with the police. We went on through the night, and some of us would not run into each other, but run across each other, and we'd talk back and forth on the CB and keep each other awake and alert. And we just timed it all wrong. We took the wrong route. We didn't go fast enough early on. Jack May and Rick Klein won it in a Ferrari Dino, and they went flat out the whole time. They got arrested in Ohio, and even with a delay with the police, they still won. That was an interesting experience. My wife flew out and met me, and a friend of mine who was an attorney in Jacksonville loaned me a badge for my license plate. It said 4th Judicial Circuit State Attorney's Office, thinking that might help us if we got stopped. Well, my wife's with me. We're driving back from California. Tom had flown back. And I get nailed by an airplane in Banning. And they pull me over. And the officer walks up to the car, and he looks at the license plate. And he says, oh, an attorney, huh? No argument, nothing. Here's your ticket. So what we thought would have been a good ploy didn't work. It was just one of those serendipitous moments that was made no sense whatsoever. I thought I was making some sort of a statement about public safety and speed and everything else, but it was just a lark. I think over the years it's been proven that speed is not necessarily something that's as dangerous as, say, hogging the left lane, drinking while driving, texting while driving. Generally speaking, the guys in the Cannonball were kind of handpicked by Brock. He did not want some off-the-wall character who felt he had to run 130 miles an hour from New York to L.A. I think he realized the possibilities of a major lawsuit if something went wrong. So I think that's why he quit doing it. It kind of got out of control. The cult grew, and more people wanted to be a part of it, and he couldn't screen the entries like he did. I'd known him because when he was at Car and Driver, I was doing work with Road and Track, and we'd cross paths a lot. I think he thought that I was benign. I wasn't going to do anything stupid. If I'd had a driver who could have stayed up overnight, and if I'd gone the northern route, and if the Germans had jets 2 months earlier, we'd all be speaking German. You can come up with all sorts of what-ifs. If I had to do it over again, I would have planned it better. The guys I had the greatest admiration for, and one of them was Yogi Bear. Was one year they got the drive-away Cadillac, answered an ad in a New York newspaper, drive my car to California. And the guy said, I don't want you to drive at night. You're not to go over here 55 miles an hour. And the car finishes third in the Cannonball. They had 3 days to kill. I love that. Everybody had their shtick, whether it was pig's eyeballs in a saline solution or the guy in the back seat that would go into conniption fits and they'd throw oxygen masks on him. Everybody had something that they thought would be plausible to get them by, get a pass on the cop with the police. We didn't. We just thought it would be an interesting thing to do. None of the Porsches have ever done very well. And it's one of the greatest road cars of all time. I mean, I still have the car. I've owned it 49 years. And a great road car. By today's standards, it's a little noisy, and doesn't have the modern conveniences. For crying out loud, it's 49 years old. Of course, Brock Yates and Dan Gurney won it in the Ferrari Daytona, and I own one of those, and I'll tell you what, that car will flat beat you up. A 911 is a comfort wagon compared to a Ferrari Daytona. So I have a great deal of respect for Gurney, who was as tall as I was, fitting in those little seats, which are not much bigger than a toilet seat, and not much more comfortable. Yeah, at one time I was going to sell it. I had found a BMW M1, and I was trying to figure out how I could afford it. And I was going to sell the 911, and my 3 children came to me and says, you can't sell a car. It's part of the family. So I figured a way of keeping the M1 and the 911. Eventually sold the M1. 911 probably be the last car to go. I bumped it up to a 2.7. And with Brumos being in Jacksonville, I got a lot of parts off of Peter Gregg's race car, the special offset, the 911 ST wheels, and we got the Carrera deck lid. It's a faux Carrera. The purists may not like it, but I don't care. It's my car. We took the 31-gallon gas tank out of it, though, and put a normal 16-gallon tank back in it. As soon as I finished the Cannonball, I called my wife. I said, Jane, well, we made it. Everything's fine. And she says, don't come home. I said, what? She said, your dad is so mad. I said, well, I guess he'll get over it.
A watch can do a lot more than just tell time. It can make a statement to the world or show people a little bit more about who you want to be. Vincero offers an awesome line of designer watches at a great value that you can check out today at the link in the description below. You can also use the code VINwiki for a discount at checkout. So be sure to check them out and thank them for their support of the channel and find your next watch. It might start a great conversation, turn some heads, or who knows, lead to your next great story.